Why are there things in your home you know you no longer use but still can't bring yourself to let go of? Maybe it's a box tucked under the bed, an overstuffed drawer, or a corner of the house you keep avoiding. Every time you open it, you feel overwhelmed, tired, and quietly frustrated with yourself. Why does this never feel done, even though your life now looks very different from before? The issue isn't that you're bad at decluttering. It's that many of the things in your home belong to a version of you that you lived through but are no longer living as. In this video, I'll share 7 clear practical tips to help you recognize and deal with items tied to that old version without decluttering your whole home, without forcing yourself, just focusing on doing it right and finishing it. If there's one area in your home you've been stuck on for a long time, this is a good place to start. First, let's begin with the items you kept during a time when life was more about surviving than choosing. Many things in your home don't stay because they're still useful, but because they once helped you get through. During periods when you had to push yourself every day, meet expectations, and carry pressure, with very little room to decide, holding on to objects became a way to hold on to safety. They quietly said, "At least I did the right thing. At least I tried. At least I wasn't wrong." In those moments, the brain naturally prioritizes familiarity over fit. What's familiar feels predictable and controllable, even if it no longer matches your life now. What's new, by contrast, feels uncertain. It doesn't come with guarantees. And during hard times, uncertainty can feel threatening rather than exciting. The issue begins when life has already shifted, but the objects from that survival phase remain. You may no longer need to push yourself the same way, yet your space keeps telling the story of someone who had to endure. I've been there. Seeing those items didn't trigger clear memories, but my body responded anyway, slightly tighter, slightly heavier. Without realizing it, the home stopped feeling like a place to rest. It became a place that quietly stored effort, pressure, and endurance. What matters here isn't deciding whether keeping something is right or wrong. Overanalyzing often keeps you stuck. A more helpful approach is to reduce the decision-making load. When you declutter, start very small: a single drawer, one shelf, one box. Pick up each item and ask one simple question: does this support the rhythm of my life now? You don't have to decide immediately whether to keep or let it go. For items tied mainly to a period of struggle, place them together and move them out of your main living space. When those items are no longer in front of you every day, something becomes clear. The space feels lighter before your thinking does. And once that lightness appears, you may notice something else too. How many things you kept were never really about need, but about habits you formed just to get through. That's what I'll explore next: the small habits I let go of to make life simpler without trying to change everything at once. Next, look at the things tied to roles you once carried, but no longer live inside. Your living space often holds traces of roles you carried for a long time. It might be an old job, a family responsibility, or an image you worked hard to maintain in front of others. When a role lasts long enough, the brain stops seeing it as temporary and weaves it into your identity. That's why even after the role has ended, the things associated with it remain quietly like a backup plan. Not necessarily because you still need them, but because somewhere inside you haven't fully closed that chapter yet. What if I have to go back? What if I'm not really done? Keeping these items is like keeping the option to step back into an old role even when you know you no longer live there. This isn't a weakness. Closing a role is often harder than stepping into one. These objects become proof that I used to be that person, and in subtle ways they allow you to delay a complete goodbye. As a result, the home slowly turns into storage for roles that are already finished. You've moved on in your thinking, your daily rhythm, and your life, but the space hasn't caught up. Each time you open a closet and see items tied to an old role, you feel suspended. Not exactly stuck, but not fully transitioned either. The home no longer feels aligned with who you are now. Instead of decluttering by gathering everything and trying to deal with it all, try a different approach: declutter by role. Choose one role that has ended: an old job, a past phase of life, a responsibility that no longer belongs to you. Gather everything connected to that role in one place and look at it as a whole. Side by side, it becomes much clearer which items still hold meaning and which ones exist simply out of habit. Keep a few truly important pieces if you want. Let the rest go or remove them completely from your home. This isn't about denying your past. It's about closing that role clearly without forcing yourself to be harsh or dramatic. You're simply giving the space and yourself permission to move into the next chapter more gently. Now move one layer deeper to the objects shaped by beliefs you learned when letting go didn't feel safe. Some things stay in your home, not because you still need them, but because you once believed you should keep them. Beliefs like if I bought it, I should use it until the end, keep it just in case, or a decent person doesn't throw things away, don't appear randomly. They often form during times of scarcity judgment, or when every small decision had to be carefully weighed to avoid being seen as wasteful or irresponsible. Holding on to things then helped you avoid feeling wrong, avoid feeling careless, avoid feeling like you weren't good enough. But as life becomes more stable, those beliefs don't automatically update. They stay quietly attached to items you don't use, but don't release either. Over time, the home fills with things shaped by should and must rather than reflecting what you genuinely need now. What makes this difficult is that you don't clearly feel like you have too much. There's just a vague heaviness in the space. You tidy, but the lightness doesn't last. Because you're not only dealing with objects, you're living among belief systems that were never taken apart. The practical approach isn't to debate with yourself about which beliefs are right or wrong. The brain is excellent at justification, and you'll always find a reason to keep things. Instead, choose a few items you know you're holding on to, purely out of obligation, not use. Place them out of sight for a fixed period, say 1 month. Don't open the box, don't check, don't revisit. If you don't need them during that time, let them go without reopening the box. This isn't about throwing things away, it's about separating beliefs from objects. When beliefs no longer cling to physical items, you feel noticeably lighter. Not because the house is emptier, but because you're no longer living under outdated shoulds and musts. Here, the focus shifts from usefulness to how your body responds the moment you see something. Not every memory needs to be kept, and not everything tied to the past is negative. But some items feel heavy the moment you see them. You don't need to touch them or think deeply, just passing by is enough to shift your mood. This happens because the brain stores emotion faster and deeper than logic. An object can be perfectly ordinary in function, yet carry the emotional state you once lived in. These items don't remind you of the full story. They don't offer context or distance. They pull you straight back into the feeling tired, tense, sad, or powerless. When these triggers appear regularly in your living space, the home stops being a place to rest. It becomes a place that repeatedly brings you back to states you worked very hard to move through. You don't need to analyze whether keeping these items is right or wrong. You don't need to question whether you're being too sensitive or should be more mature. Your body's reaction is already a clear answer. The body knows what makes it contract even when the mind can't name it yet. A simple but very effective step is to identify the items that make you feel heavier, place them in a box, and remove that box from your living space the same day. You don't need to throw them away immediately. You don't need a final decision. You just need them out of your daily line of sight. Once they're gone, you'll notice the space lightens before you even understand why. And when the space feels lighter, the next decision, keep or let go, feels lighter too. Sometimes what you need isn't decisiveness, but a bit of breathing room before deciding. Another important step is noticing the items you keep mainly as proof of past effort. Many people keep things not because they still use them, but because those things act as quiet proof of what they've been through. They may come from periods of intense struggle, when you had to push beyond your limits, endure more than felt reasonable, and carry yourself through days without knowing whether you were truly okay. These items aren't just objects, they become witnesses. They say, "I really tried." For the brain, keeping these items serves a validating function. They help you trust your own experience and remember that what you went through was real. In weaker moments, seeing them can remind you that you endured, that you survived, that you didn't quit. So the attachment isn't about use, it's about recognition, even if that recognition comes only from yourself. The problem arises when these items remain in your current living space. They stop being memories and become emotional anchors. Instead of adding strength, they quietly pull you back into feelings of exhaustion or endurance. You've moved past that phase, but the space hasn't updated. And so, even though life is lighter now, it's hard to fully feel how far you've come. You don't need to reject or erase your past. The practical approach isn't to discard everything as proof that you're fine now. When decluttering, gather the items you're keeping purely as symbols of effort or survival. Look at them together rather than scattered throughout your home. If you want, choose one representative piece to keep as a memory enough to acknowledge, but not enough to anchor you. Place the rest in a box and remove it from your living space. When they're no longer present every day, something becomes clear. Your strength doesn't live in those objects. It lives in the fact that you're still here, still moving forward without needing constant evidence in front of you to believe it. At this stage, let's look at what no longer matches who you've become. Some things entered your home during a time when you weren't yet clear about what you truly needed. Choices then were often shaped by external expectations, what was considered appropriate or trendy, or the desire to become a more acceptable version of yourself. Those choices weren't wrong, they simply reflected who you were while still figuring things out. At that stage, objects acted like role-testing tools. You used them to see whether you actually belonged in a certain image or identity. Over time, though, you gained clarity, and yet the items from that uncertain phase stayed. They take up space not only in your home, but in your mind. Each time you see them, you're reminded of versions of yourself you tried on but didn't keep. The space becomes ambiguous, no longer representing who you were, but not fully reflecting who you are now either. This makes it harder for your home to support your current life. Instead of grounding you, it blends multiple unfinished phases together. The shift doesn't come from blaming yourself or forcing minimalism. When decluttering, place items from that unclear phase next to the things you actually use every day. The contrast is usually obvious. Some items are chosen without effort, others require constant justification. Remove what no longer fits from your main living areas. You can donate them or move them out of the house entirely. No need to decide everything in one session. This isn't rejection of your past. It's recognition that you've learned enough to choose differently now. When your space reflects who you are today, it stops reminding you of who you thought you should be. It starts supporting what you genuinely need now. Finally, we arrive at the items that stay because they quietly delay change. Some items remain in your home not because you need them, but because they help you avoid change. They keep life familiar and safe enough that you don't have to reconsider how you're living or acknowledge that you've entered a new phase. Keeping them functions like an exit option. If I'm not ready, I can still go back. These items rarely feel obviously problematic. They aren't broken or visibly excessive. The issue lies in their quiet meaning. They allow postponement of acknowledging a different rhythm of life, postponement of reorganizing priorities, postponement of saying goodbye to a version of yourself you've known for a long time. As long as they remain, you stay in a middle state, not fully in the past, but not fully present either. The home holds you in place instead of supporting forward movement. It functions, but it doesn't feel like a companion. Every corner carries an unanswered question. Notice that these are often the items you hesitate over the longest. You pick them up, put them down, circle around them, and leave them for later. Not because they matter more than others, but because they're tied to a change you're not ready to face yet. You don't need to force a decision. The practical step is simply to identify what you hesitate over the most, remove it from your main living space, and observe how you feel over the next few days. No analysis, no justification. Very often, once the item is no longer in sight, you realize the hardest part wasn't letting go of the object. It was accepting the change that came with it. And when that change is finally faced, it becomes clear which things truly belong to an older version of you. and which no longer need to come along to live well in the present. At that point, the decision feels lighter, not because there's less stuff, but because you've stopped using objects as a way to postpone living honestly with yourself. You don't need to let go of everything, and you don't need to finish it all at once. Simply recognizing which items no longer belong to who you are now is already a big step. Today, try starting with just one item you've been hesitating over the longest. Move it out of your main living space, and notice how you feel over the next few days. If things feel lighter or clearer, that's your answer. In the next video, I'll share the small habits I've let go of to make life simpler, not by doing more, but by removing the right things. If this video was helpful, please like and subscribe so we can continue this journey together.